probably seen that I really love all the artistic mediums that Simon Hurley for Ranger releases, including lunar paste, solar paste, astro paste, neon paste. So I am so excited to be able to share with you today that there is a brand new product from Simon Hurley for Ranger, and it is called Solar Spray. Now, Solar Spray is similar to solar paste in that it looks white and iridescent on white paper with a hint of the color that it is. But then the magic happens when you spray it on dark cardstock like black or dark blue, and you can see the color, and it's absolutely phenomenal and shiny, and it's so easy to just spritz on. So as always, I like to swatch out my colors first. So let's take a look at the new Solar Sprays on white cardstock and black cardstock. Here's the whole rainbow of solar sprays together. I, of course, love their names. Things like for the red, it is Cross My Heart. The orange is Overheated, Golden Hour, Crocodile Tears, Beluga, and then Royal Flush. And you can see if there's a bunch at the bottom, you do want to shake that side to side to make sure that all that iridescence is mixed in throughout the bottle. Here I'm spraying the Overheated on white and then black cardstock to swatch them out. It's hard to see the red, but there is a hint of it on that white paper. Hopefully you can see the shine in camera, and you can obviously see it on the black. So it's just a different look. It's an understated shine and iridescence with a hint of color on the white or light cardstocks. And then it's a wowza blast of color and shine on the black. So I will swatch out all those colors, and you can see them once they're dry here and how they look on those cardstocks. Now I'm going to quickly flip through some of the other supplies that are new in this release. First up, there's the Heartfelt Blooms stamps and dies. So you can see there is a bundle of flowers, and then there are some individual flowers that are actually layering stamps, and then the dies to cut them out. This is the Typewriter Cling Rubber Background Stamp. Background stamps like this with print are such a great versatile design that you can use on a number of cards. This is the Whimsical Florals Peel Apart Background Stamps. Love these peel apart stamps because you can take out pieces of them, just use the border, or stamp them in different colors once you put it all back together. So this is also a cling mounted rubber stamp. Now let's use those new solar sprays along with some of the stamps and dies from this latest release and find a whole bunch of ways to use the solar spray in your card making. I'll start out with that Typewriter Cling Mounted Rubber Background Stamp. So I have my alt new stamp wheel, and I've taken the thick mat underneath out and put in a thin mat that will hold the cardstock in place, and then I will stamp the cardstock with Versamark ink and pour white embossing powder on top. And don't worry if you miss a spot or two here or there, because this is supposed to be, especially along with the sprays, a more artistic look. So I'll start by going in with a little Beluga, and then I'll add some Royal Flush, and that came out a little bit stronger. I pressed a little harder on the nozzle and I got a big spritz. That's okay, just go in with another color. So I have the Overheated here, adding little bits, and then I'm just gonna set this aside to air dry. While that's drying, I'll take that same typewriter stamp and I'll ink it up with some black ink, and then I'll stamp it on an A2 piece of cardstock that is white this time. And so now when I'm adding the sprays, you can just see it as I tilt it in the light, because you get that hint of color along with tons of shine. So these are the two backgrounds that I created. They're different looks depending on the cardstock colors. Now I'll take a dark blue piece of cardstock and I'm treating it with anti-static powder, and I'll take the peel apart background stamp and just use the outer edge, which has got leaves and then a bit of small blooms. I'll cover that all with gold embossing powder so that I can have that really stand out, and I'll heat set it so that the gold turns from a basic gold color into a really, really shiny shiny background. And I still am amazed by embossing powders. All these years later, I think they're so awesome. I'm adding some of the Crocodile Tears Solar Paste around the edge because this is kind of the greenery of my card. And I love how the green shows up on that blue background. Now I'll take the same color of cardstock, treat it with anti-static powder, and stamp the two peel-apart flowers in Versamark ink, and then cover both flowers with the same gold embossing powder that I used on the edge, and then heat set that. And once again, these flowers, once they're heat set, they're shiny gold. Now I don't have dies for these, so I will fussy cut them out. This way I can use two different colors of solar sprays. I used Beluga on one and then Royal Flush on the other. And you can see some of the spray stays on top of that gold embossing powder once it's melted, but see how the top flower has less of that? That's because I wiped it off. So you can wipe off on the gold and really still see that beautiful embossed color and see the color of the background as well. Of course, I had to create a rainbow because we had a rainbow of colors. This is such an easy background. I'm just spritzing the colors in Roy G. Biv order along a piece of black cardstock. This time I am being impatient, so I will heat set this. And the heat does add a little movement to the spray, which I think is kind of neat. We'll never have to worry about how hard it is to create galaxy backgrounds again because these sprays will do it for you, and I'll do that definitely in another video coming up soon. For this first card, let's take some of the stamps from the Heartfelt Blooms, and I'll specifically be using the two layering stamps. For the first layer, I'll stamp the outline layer in Prom Queen. This is a Simon Hurley pink that is one of my favorites. I just love how bright it is, how it pops. So you don't always have to do the outline layer in black. You're free to, of course. For the second layer, I will do Sidewalk Chalk. It's another pink from Simon Hurley. And so instead of doing black with a color, I'm layering two pinks on top of each other, which will make the flower look more like the flower rather than a flower that was colored in, say, with markers. Now I have one of the sentiments from that same stamp set, and I'll just stamp that in black ink along the edge of this panel that I am creating with all of this stamping. I'll cut out the sentiment to create a sentiment strip or a little sentiment rectangle, and I'll use the dies to cut out the two flowers. And when I have a background that's a little wrinkled or warped because of watercoloring or solar sprays, I like to put it in a piece of typing paper and run it through my die cut machine back and forth using the same sandwich that I would use for dies. I just don't put any dies in there. And that helps flatten it out at least a little bit. So it definitely looks better than it did before. It was pretty warped. Then to really help it straighten out, I'll put tape runner all around the edges and some in the center as well, and then adhere it down to a mat. This time I cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4 so you can see the mat in the background, but you don't always have to cut it down. You can do an A2 on an A2 and that will just help it stay straight. I'll pop up those flowers and the sentiment, and I hope you can see the little bit of shine and a little hint of color that I added to the background. There it is there at the bottom. It looks amazing, but of course it looks even more amazing on this black cardstock where I created the rainbow. So I'll add a little bit of anti-static powder tool right on top of this rainbow panel. And then I'm stamping a sentiment from that same stamp set, the Heartfelt Blooms, with some Versamark ink. And I'll just make sure that I really get a good impression here because it's hard even for me in person to see if I've gotten a clear impression. So I usually like to stamp it carefully twice and make sure it really lines up on top of each other using the stamp wheel. And then I'll pour some white embossing powder on top, and you can see it really is standing out perfectly, but it stands out even more after you heat set it. Again, to get that flat, I'll put a bunch of tape runner behind it and then mat it on a piece of cardstock. For this card, I'm using a piece of brushed black cardstock from Spellbinders as the mat. So I've cut my panel down to 4 by 5 1/4. Once again, I will add a bunch of tape runner on the back, making sure I've got all the edges because the edges tend to want to curl up if you have a little bit of warping on your panel. And then place that down on the brushed black cardstock. The brushed black has a little hint of shimmer to it, so I thought it was perfect for this. Next, I'll take a piece of black cardstock and treat it with anti-static powder tool, and I'll stamp the main image or the large image from the stamp set, the floral blooms, and then add some white embossing powder on top, just like I did with the white embossing on the text background, that typewriter background. I also have a sentiment from the stamp set. Now I'm taking a little bit of the Golden Hour Solar Paste and putting it on my glass mat and picking it up with a small brush and brushing inside the lines of the flowers. So you can absolutely paint with this solar paste. Now, you definitely have to use a little bit more. It will dry and you can pick some up if it gets outside the lines, but the embossing powder lines actually help to keep you inside them rather than getting them all over the place. So you can see you can kind of just drop down the color onto the area and it will flow in between those lines. So I'll go over it again in places where I wanted a slightly darker color. And next I'll take the Crocodile Tears Solar Paste and use that for the leaves. This is really simple to do. You're not doing blending and shading. You're just laying down this color because of the outcome that you'll get, which is this really amazing light color on the dark background. I'll die cut that out and then pop it up. And of course, it also has tons of shine between the background and the flowers themselves. And then I'll pop up the sentiment. I covered up a little spot that I messed up on my flowers there. You can always do that with a sentiment or another embellishment. Oh, and look at that little foam square piece that is still on there. I'll brush that off later. For this card, I simply popped up the flowers on top of that background that I created, and then I'll pop up the sentiment right on top. And so we have 3 different colors of the solar sprays. This is just a really easy, simple way to use them on a card. I don't know about you, but I love a new medium that allows me to add color and shine to my cards really easily. And that's what this new line of solar sprays allows you to do. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments below. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. No, 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 no. Okay, I think I got it at that point.